Recently, on our Patreon-only Silver Age Batman podcast, Kumar and I touched on Julius Schwartz's idea that putting a gorilla on the cover will always sell more magazines, and how that idea likely birthed the 1960s DC series Angel and the Ape. It was a goofy comedy series about a beautiful young woman and a comics artist gorilla who run a detective agency. For some reason, this flash-in-the-pan series had two revivals, in 1991, written and penciled by Phil Foglio, and 2001, with script by Howard Chaykin and David Tischman, art by Philip Bond, and beautiful Art Adams covers. None of them are spectacular books, but comparing them tells us a lot about how U.S. comics changed over the course of 35 years. This week, Kumar and I discuss all three iterations of Angel and the Ape. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Kumar.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Kumar in Melbourne. Hello.
Hello.
And I can't remember what it was we were recording before, but the topic of Angel and the Ape came up.
Well, I was wondering how that topipic came up. I don't know what.
I don't remember now. I think we might have been recording a Silver Age Batman.
Something about apes. Yes, gorillas.
It came up, and the Julius Schwartz idea that if you put a gorilla on the cover of the comic, it'll sell better.
Yes.
I guess this was actually something that goes back to the days of pulps, that they would put gorillas on the cover to sell more books. So that has to have been part of the inspiration for Angel and the Ape. Well, when it came up, though, so I've talked before, maybe not on this show, but on To the Bat Polls, about, so Paul and I had a friend when we were kids whose brother had bought a lot of comics in the 60s.
Okay.
And one of the comics that he had was the debut of Angel and the Ape in Showcase 77.
Okay.
And so even though I don't recall if I actually ever read it or not, it's kind of nostalgic idea for me, this title.
I was wondering, because, we're really in the weeds of, like, DC obscurity here, and it seems like you were a Marvel guy, and I was surprised that you were, like, when we talked about it jokingly, doing an episode of Angel and Ape, and then you were like, well, let's schedule this. And I was like, what? What are we talking about? I was a bit shocked, because this is, and the other thing that surprised me is there's very little of it. Like, there's total over a course of 35 years. There's 16 issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's revivals. There's like two revivals. Surprisingly.
Yeah, I didn't know about the revivals. That was a shock to me.
I knew about the 80s one.
Or the 1991.
The shock was the desire to try to revive it.
Yeah, like anybody remembers. I mean, maybe your older readers would say, oh, yeah, I kind of remembered seeing that and not buying it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, it was canceled after 6 issues, the initial run.
Well, or 7, actually. This number 7, they retitled the book a bit.
Sure. Well, they gave up on the title even, after issue 6. They're like, it's not working. We need to change it. And they took the ape off the title and the cover by number 7.
Which seems to be kind of completely missing the point.
Exactly. And then we've got 2 very different revivals that are like, nobody remembers that old comic anyway. Let's just do our own thing. But then why are they doing it? I think that's going to be... stuff's never been reprinted. I immediately, when we started, I went onto Amazon and I was like, I wonder if there's an omnibus of all these comics. And there wasn't.
Yeah, nothing.
Just very unusual.
Not even available digitally.
Yeah, pretty unusual for current era DC, which is reprinting almost everything. And then once I read them, especially issues 3 and 4, I was like, oh, now I see why these haven't been reprinted. But what? The other thing that hasn't been reprinted, there's a whole era of weird DC humor comics around this time. So there was the Bob Hope title, 109 issues.
And Jerry
Martin
Lewis.
yeah, 124 issues of that. That ran until 71. So that was like before and after Angel and the Eight. Meanwhile, over at Marvel, they've got Night Nurse going on. It's
not Brandak.
Yes.
And DC also had Inferior 5, which gets connected with one of the reboots here. And also, that one mentions the title Sugar and Spike. When I was a kid, somebody gave me an issue of that in 1969 or 70. I was like 4 or 5 years old. I never got another issue of it, but I read that one probably 25 times.
Yeah, I went into a lot of rabbit holes preparing for this episode. One of them was,
Me too.
There's a moment where the ape, Sam Simeon, is reading a comic called Anthro, and I thought it was a joke comic, just made up title. And then I was like, wait a second. And then I think that there was an ad in a later issue for an actual comic called Anthro. I was like, is this real? And I Googled it, and sure enough, DC did have this caveman title called Anthro that lasted for 6 issues. And
was it a comedy book or?
I kind of flipped through some scans online. It didn't look like a comedy. It looked like it was a serious book. But I wonder what year Commandy was, because it just seemed like such a...
Oh, yeah, Commandy's in the 70s.
Yeah, so Commandy's like... Yeah, this was just set in like... But the kids, like, they look like 1960s teenagers. But they're supposed to be cavemen and cavewomen, but they all look like they're hanging out on the beach with Annette Funicello or something like that. It's bizarre, absolutely strange. What I flipped through it, and done in this very heavy inking style. The cartoonist was named something Post. Last name was Post. I can't remember, but it looked like Joe Kubert, almost like his Tarzan comics, but with these weird, like, hippie teenagers. It was strange stuff, man. And I was like, this is another thing that only lasted 6 issues. Strange times for publishing, for sure.
Yeah, you said you went down a lot of rabbit holes. I did too. I've got a big rabbit hole to talk about later.
Okay.
But yeah, so let's talk about, I mean, we don't need to go page by page through or something, but just kind of talk about what the book is like and talk about what the reboots are like. And
because there's...
Sorry,
go ahead.
I felt like reading these 3 different series on the same property was kind of a way to look to see the changes in American comics over 100%. That time. Because the approach in the 91 and the 2001 are so different. They're fairly different from each other, and of course they're both very different from 1968.
Yeah. I agree. The publishing angle was my main hook reading these, because I found there wasn't much substance.
Especially to the original series. Yeah.
Yeah, and the original series it's got a kind of sitcom setup.
It kind of feels like Mad Magazine with code approval.
Very, very much so. There's a scene, I think on page 1 or 2, where somebody's walking around with a cast. I think it's on page 1 or page 2. And the cast has a sticker on it that says cast of thousands.
Yeah.
He's got a broken leg, right? He's got a broken leg, he's got a cast on it. And there's 6. And that's, in Mad, you would have 4 or 5 gags. Will Elder would have drawn one panel with 5 gags in it. Here it's just, this is the main joke almost. In this panel, I was like, boy, this is weak sauce, and it's pretty consistently like that. But basically, I think the premise was great. I love that they don't explain anything. There's this girl named Angel O'Day. She's a private investigator. She co-runs it with Sam Simeon. Sam is a gorilla. They never explain how she met Sam. They never explain why Sam wears human clothes. No, in the original, they never explain how Sam's able to communicate with her.
Because unique to the original, he speaks in a kind of guerrilla language.
Yes.
Which, and then in like a separate word balloon, they'll translate it. And I thought, well, boy, as a writer, as a letterer, I would hate that, because you have to use twice as much real estate for each line that he has.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of it is thought balloons, and then it's just regular English. But when he speaks, it's like, and then also what it means.
Yeah. There were one or two decent gags out of it, though. Like, you'd have a very long and then it'd be like, I'm sorry, or something underneath. There were some translation gags with it. But also, he is a comic book artist working for this.
I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. And my take on it was the detective angle was to sell books, and the comic book angle was to vent.
Yes, I agree. But what is the in-story reason this guy has two jobs? It's never explained in those first 6 issues.
Yeah, I don't think it's explained in any of the reboots either. I think in one of the
revivals they say that he wasn't making enough money as a comic book artist, so he's doing the detective business on the side. I feel like there was one line about it somewhere, but they never really explain why he's working these two very different jobs.
Yeah, it's unexpected.
Yeah. But there's all this kind of sitcom-y stuff around it. Like, he's got a nearsighted landlord that is always mistaking him for... I'm not sure. It's inconsistent. We've got 6, 7, 8 issues here. Sometimes he's there, the landlord is there, sometimes he isn't. It's like they couldn't quite decide what they were going for with this comic. And then later, by issue 4, 5, 6, they've started doing one-pagers, like one-page gags. They've started putting in these bits of Sergio Aragonés drawing the comics, which Sam Simeon has supposedly drawn.
Yeah.
So they turned it into kind of variety magazine instead of what originally started out as, which is full-page kind of kooky detective adventures. They were really like, you can see the sales plummeting. Like, they're just trying, let's try this. Let's try to do one-page gag. Let's try to make it like Archie. Let's try to do this or that. Let's have less of the landlord. Let's do this thing, or, let's change the title. By issue 7, they changed the title, and the first story doesn't even have Sam in it.
They actually changed the title. They changed the title twice if you look at it, because so it debuts in Showcase number 77, and then so the first 1, 2, 3 issues are just Angel and the Ape. Well, it says who are they, what are they, Angel and the Ape. Then with issue 4 it becomes Meet Angel and the Ape, and that's 4, 5, and 6, and then in 7 they delete and the Ape. And it's just Meet Angel.
Right. But I did like the concept of... I like that they didn't explain who this ape was, or why he could speak.
Yeah, I think explaining it ruins it.
Exactly. I like the kookiness of it. I don't think it was executed hugely well. By the way, we haven't mentioned this is written by E. Nelson Bridwell, who also wrote Inferior 5, which was also canceled after 12 issues.
Yeah, I'm always getting him confused with Norman Bridwell, the creator of Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Okay, right.
And like, I thought he Norman Bridwell wrote comics? Like, no.
And drawn by Bob Oxner sometimes, and then inked by Wally Wood sometimes.
Yeah.
Who, I love Wally Wood's art. Is he the right artist for Bigfoot cartooning? I'm not sure. I think Oxner, who's a rougher artist who I don't like as much as Wood, is a better choice for the material overall.
And also some of the art is Tex Blaisdell.
Yes.
And this was this was my biggest rabbit hole.
Okay.
So in 1968, so this Showcase 77 comes out. It's the same year that Harold Gray died, creator of Little Orphan Annie.
Right. Yeah, right.
And Blaisdell became the artist on Little Orphan Annie for several years.
Oh, okay.
And I found a YouTube clip from the old quiz show To Tell the Truth.
Okay.
Are you familiar with To Tell the Truth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So for younger people, I could explain the concept was that 3 people would come on stage, all claiming to be the same person. They'd all say, "My name is Tex Blaisdell. My name is Tex Blaisdell." And then the 4 celebrity panelists would try to figure out which one was the real Tex Blaisdell by asking them questions. So I saw, he stood, will the real Tex Blaisdell please stand up, which was a, commonly repeated line in the culture for a while. And then he gets up and he draws a portrait of Annie. So that was interesting. And I was reading about the history of Little Orphan Annie after Gray died and all the different people who worked on it.
Right.
I was like, this is not for this episode.
Yeah. Well, I ended up going down those rabbit holes too, like I said, because oftentimes I would just get distracted because the material wasn't holding me. And I'd be like, what's this thing? What's that thing? And I would go look it up. But you're right about the cultural moment stuff too, because there's like a lot of like go-go dancer kind of stuff here.
Oh yeah.
I think it's issue 1, the whole plot is about the disappearing go-go dancers.
And hippies show up a number of times.
Yes, but
even the cover of issue 1 has Sam as a hippie playing a sitar.
Yes. Also, a lot of the covers had like kind of Addams Family or Munsters type monsters hanging around.
I don't know what that was about, because
the stories were never about that.
Yeah, they're never in the issue. Yeah, especially issue 6 and 7. You've got Frankenstein's monster and Dracula, and it has nothing to do with the inside.
Twice in a row. It's almost like one was a sample cover that got rejected, so they redid it, and then for the next issue they're like, well, let's just use the first cover you did again. Such a weird choice. The comics are not about spooky stuff.
Well, in issue 7, also the Meet Angel issue, you have Frankenstein's monster and Dracula, who are pushing a tied up angel who is on skis on a ski
By the
slope.
way, in that issue we introduce her aunt, who is like a evil witch.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Why?
And I was like, am I reading Sabrina here?
Yes. It is like, it's just a sudden, it's like they've completely retooled their sitcom.
Yeah, it's Sabrina who can't do magic.
So strange. But the thing about the go-go dancer, it's interesting to me because it's always like, DC and Marvel always a few years behind, because I looked it up. Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine was 1965. So it's almost like 3 years after they're like, oh, we got to get some go-go dancers in this comic.
It's a long turnaround between conception and publication.
Yes. But I will say, one thing that's been consistent through the 3 series, which are 68, 91, 2001, is there's a kind of like the sexiness of Angel is like she does this kind of like sexy dance, but it's miniskirts. It's all about miniskirts in the 68 series. She's like doing this wiggle dance, and the guys that are witnessing this are like freaking out.
Yeah, everybody's tongue's hanging out.
Yes. And then what was it? And then what was it in the 91 version? There is a kind of where she's kind of, there's always a state of undress. But by 2001, it's really like she might be a stripper or something. It's not really
there's
clear,
like more
but
like
it's really sexed
exotic
up.
dancing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So the comics making angle. So Sam's editor is called Stan Bragg. He works at Brain Picks Comics Incorporated, and he
wears a super outfit.
Yeah, and he has an assistant called Tex Bumblewell. And both of them are, Stan himself and Tex are like bragging up Stan. Like, his name is Stan. Come on, who are we talking about here, really? And Roy Thomas.
And he's bragging. He's bragging all the time. So, yes, who could this be? Yeah.
And it's years before Funky Flashman and Mr. Miracle number 6.
Yes. And he's working for that company for a little, what was called Brain Picks Comics.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was like, are they going for some sort of pun? And I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah, I don't know. Brain Picks.
Brain Picks? What was that supposed to mean?
Picks
and
your
also,
brain?
Maybe.
You pick your brain and come up with ideas? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But even the title Angel in the Ape, isn't that like some sort of religious evolution argument of some sort?
Well,
feel
when
like
I
I've
was
seen this
searching on
before.
Amazon, there were no comics related to it, but there were other books that had the words angel and ape in the title.
Right, right.
So I didn't take a look at them or what they were about. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't think what it might be referring to. Chico and the Man is later, so it doesn't have anything to do with that.
No, yeah, I feel like it's some medieval monk. Or anyway, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, write us and let us know, listeners.
yes,
What
there's
does that
something
have to do
obvious
with?
out there that I'm missing about that, for sure. Okay, should we talk about the issues 3 and 4, because those are like the really racist ones that are probably what's preventing this from being published.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of non-PC stuff in this original series. From the objectification of women angle to the guys with flop foreign accents angle. Yeah. Okay, sure.
Well, I just want to mention, I think this is the reason we don't have an omnibus of these series, is they're really,
Probably. Yeah, we've got some American Indians on the first page.
yeah, and that fortunately that goes away.
Yeah, it's just the first page. And then the next
Yeah.
issue we've got a whole issue of Japanese/Chinese people mixing up their L's and R's.
Yes, there's a Charlie Chan parody.
Yeah.
There's Charlie Chan parody called Charlie Chum. But yeah, we have to deal with him and the coloring, the skin coloring, and all it's all really hard work. Inked lovingly by Wally Wood, but boy, it was a hard read for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And then I guess they bow out with Showcase 100.
Right, yeah, I didn't actually get around to reading that one, but Showcase 100, it's like a mashup of all the DC characters, and late in the book, Angel and the Ape appear for a few panels, just as part of the story that's running through the whole issue.
Yeah, actually, Angel's in it quite a bit. Like, she's one of the main, she kind of helps solve the crisis. But I have to say, this is another bad habit DC gets into, where they have a crisis on Infinite Earths, which is basically what this is. Every hero shows up, and they have to include their comedy heroes. That, I mean, we don't need Bob Hope.
They don't actually have to. They think they have to.
Right. Right. But I'm saying just leave it out, DC. Like, it's just a weird choice.
Yeah, what's post-crisis Bob Hope?
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't play golf, he plays tennis? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but very weird that they chose to include these characters alongside all their serious superheroes dealing with a serious galactic crisis. Just such an odd state of mind, but that's just how their brains work, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was imagining, like, if this original series had come out 5 or 10 years later, how might it have been different? Probably more cleavage, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it would have. I think the humor books, like Bob Hope was done by 68, Martin and Lewis was done by 71.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way it could have survived. The market was turning against those books, but
yeah, and certainly even like Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane was switched into miniskirt territory quite late. But I think even that was. They were pushing it by the mid-70s. Like, they were still putting them out there, but it was pretty dead on its legs, I would guess.
I had a question. In the first issue, not the debut, but actually, Angel and Ape #1.
Yeah.
Those movers, are they supposed to be Laurel and Hardy, or are they supposed to be Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton? It looked like it was Norton and Hardy.
You're right. I didn't even notice that. It does look like they've mismatched two different characters.
Yeah, because they got the Ed Norton hat and everything, but then we got the Oliver Hardy mustache.
100%. You're so right. So strange.
Yeah.
Maybe he forgot to put a note in the script about what the characters are supposed to look like. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an unusual team up. They should have advertised that on the cover. It's Oliver Hardy and Ed Norton together for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. But basically, I'd say that the shape of these stories is um, they're just really strange, like bank robbing schemes. Like this guy's brainwashing go-go dancers
Mm-hmm.
to make them rob people or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Another running gag is that both humans and apes think that Sam Samian is cute. Usually with humans, it's that they don't know he's an ape for some reason. They can't figure it out. And with apes, they realize he's an ape, but he's very well dressed. So that's what they find attractive. So that seems to come up a few times. The stories are just really wacky, kind of hijinks.
Yeah, they're more gag-driven than story-driven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is very different from both of the reboots.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Because, yeah, this kind of gag comic was, R.I.P. but long before 1991.
Yeah.
Coming up, the Phil Foglio and Howard Chaykin versions of Angel and the Ape, after this. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits, where we've recently gone over an early draft of Rick Vollard's script for As the Bookworm Turns, and we'll be digging into a variety of documents from the files of William Dozier, producer of Batman and the Green Hornet, including his correspondence with Bruce Lee and more Season 1 Batman scripts. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s issue by issue with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmett, Patrick, or Kumar. Follow our Patreon for free and you can hear the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support.
Hey, I'm Jen.
And I'm Sean. We're here to tell you about our podcast, Worst Collection Ever.
And this is the show where we tell you about the worst comic book collection in existence. And it just happens to belong to us.
We have some of the worst comics from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They're bad.
Terrible.
They're not worth anything.
No good.
Why do we own
Very
them?
bad.
I own a number of issues of Terror Inc. and Guy Gardner.
Basically, we go around to local comic book stores and we buy everything we can out of dollar boxes.
We tell you about the weird stuff in them. We tell you about stuff that's related to them. We go into tangents. And we're very uninformed, so...
Oh my god, totally. But totally check out our podcast because you'll hear us just talk and joke about Marvel books and DC books from God only knows when.
That's right. It's our show, Worst Collection Ever, every Tuesday on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. Download, rate, subscribe, tell a friend.
It'll be good and terrible, but good.
All right.
Yeah, for
well,
sure.
let's talk about the 91.
Sure.
So Phil Foglio, he's the writer and the penciler. I only know his name because he used to come up regularly on the Webcomics Weekly podcast a million
Girl
years
Genius.
ago.
Yeah, he did Girl Genius. He became kind of a star in the webcomics world, but he had become, he made a career for himself as a humor cartoonist, which is pretty unusual. At the time, there was Kyle Baker, Fred Hembeck, maybe Hilary Barta, that were kind of still in the 80s able to make a career. I think this was pretty early for him, though. 91 was his version of Angel and the Ape was a pretty big breakthrough for him. But he started drawing Magic the Gathering cards, so I would see those around. And he had this fantasy sex comic called Xenophile that was a big indie hit, that he was maybe self-publishing. So he had a career for himself, and he's it was a different read than reading the 68 version because, yes, I know who Bridwell and Oxner were vaguely, but I knew Phil Foglio a bit better for being a humor cartoonist. And I think he did a Plastic Man series around this time as well. Immediately it's okay, question one, why Angel and the Ape? Why was it his choice? I have so many questions. Like,
I mean, I feel like both of the reboots were like the writer saying, I remember reading Angel and the Ape. I'd really like to reboot it. And the DC saying, oh, all right.
Maybe, but they remember the title, maybe, but not what the book was about, or
well,
you know what I mean?
I don't know. So I think they would have been. I think they're probably both older than me, so they might have been like teenagers or something. Reading the comic when it came out. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like it's nostalgia driven. I can't think of any other reason that it would be revived again, because like the younger comics readers who were buying Spawn or whatever, or X-Men titles, were probably not at all interested in this.
Right, I agree, but it's very 1991 in a few ways. Like, it's very post-Watchmen, right? So, and it's all about continuity, because this time we get a full origin for Sam Simeon. We tie him into the DC universe. Yeah, so there's all this continuity
grandson
stuff.
Of Gorilla Grodd.
Yes. That was surprising. And maybe not. Maybe this is how it was working in their minds, or maybe DC mandated, like, we need to have a brandable property that's tied in, that makes people want to buy it, that's tied into continuity, so you got to make him Grodd's. You know what? When I was reading the 60s version, I was like, they've got a intelligent ape. Are they going to tie this into Gorilla City? Like, in my continuity brain was trying to come up with explanations for him, because the comic didn't give us any. But yeah, there's a lot of explanation. In fact, it forms the whole plot, is his background and how he ran away from Gorilla City and all that stuff.
Yeah, that plus Angel's half-sister being Dumb Bunny from the Inferior Five.
Yeah.
I feel like the Phil Foglio version is kind of a dramedy. It's because there's comedy, but it's like this family drama and relationship drama.
Yes.
With jokes.
Yes. And in this version, correct me if I'm wrong, I think everybody understands Sam. Sam speaks plain English, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, there's no gorilla language anymore.
It's not that Angel is the only one that understands him. Everybody understands him, but they do freak out that he's a gorilla in a suit when they see him.
And who can talk.
Yes, who can talk. But we very much got a kind of superhero adventure, because the sister from Inferior 5 shows up. She's got super strength. We've got Gorilla Grodd. We've got a big villain. Very, very complicated plot. Where basically anything can happen. Like, but we learn that Sam has powers. Sam Simeon, our ape hero, has the ability to convince people to do what he wants. It's like a mental power. There's a love triangle, as you mentioned, but Grodd has this plan to turn everybody on Earth into apes. With this big machine. He's found, like, the Green Lantern's conscious energy out in space. There's a whole Green Lantern plot here as well. They call it the Justice League International at one point. He needs Sam's powers to convince the Green Lantern energy to do what Grodd wants, to make the change permanent, because at the moment it's only temporary. But it's the kind of story where there'll be a plot hole and they'll patch it up in the next panel in one line of dialogue. Like, for example, Grodd, for some reason, whenever people turned into apes before, they would turn back into human, and the time gap would be reduced. So even if they changed for 5 minutes, it would go back in time, like, to 1 second.
Yeah, and they wouldn't remember turning into a gorilla.
Right. But when he does it now, he just says, now that I'm near the source of the power, there's no time shift. Just like that. Just like, pow, just an explanation like that. So there's that kind of storytelling here. There's also some very, 1991 sex talk. It's not a mature reader's comic, but there's like, when Angel's sister, Bunny, shows up, she wants to get in a relationship with Ape because she's super strong and no man can handle her. And there's actual conversations about, well, how are you going to have sex? And she's like, well, I don't have sex now anyway, so it doesn't matter. We'll just have an asexual relationship. There's this kind of...
There's Dumb Bunny is so strong that if she tries to do it with a normal guy, she'll accidentally kill him.
Yes. Yes. And as you mentioned, there's that whole love triangle with Myron, the Merry Man from the Inferior Five kind of stuff is all in there too. It really packs out at 4 issues. There is one section that I really love. There's an issue where Angel's mind gets zapped, and she ends up in this kind of mentally in this other realm.
Mm-hmm. I had this in my notes too. You're talking about issue 3.
Yeah.
And there are 4 pages where there's a fight going on, and we see just like a 1-inch perimeter of a page that's being covered up by what's happening with Angel.
Yeah, and there's 2 page numbers on every page. There's like a page number in the corner of the fight scene and a page number in the corner of her other world sequence. It's a really kind of neat trick that I've never seen before or since.
Add pages without blowing your page count.
Yes, exactly. Because it almost doesn't matter what's going on with the fight.
Right, it doesn't advance the plot, but
no.
But what's going on in the overlapping panels does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, but it's the same page number in both cases.
Yeah,
They're
that's
like
right.
Two page 5s, 2 page 6s. Yeah.
Yes. So you're getting like 2 at the same time. It's a neat move. I've never seen it before.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting idea.
And I do think that, Phil was a great choice for this material, or if it was his choice, but just weird that there's so much plot and continuity in it. Like I said, I'm not sure that the sitcom idea from the 60s was a great approach, but I'm not sure that this is the right approach either. If you have a comic about Angel and Ape, this beautiful woman and this gorilla investigating crimes together, what we call a one's a ex-con, it's kind of like that, but wouldn't we rather just see investigations instead of a big supervillain plot over 4 issues? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, that's more what the 2001 version gives us.
Yes.
Written by Howard Chaykin, of all people, and David Tischman.
Yes, but I wonder how the work was divided. I wonder if Tischman did I don't know anything about David Tischman.
Me neither.
He hasn't written many comics. I looked him up too. That's another rabbit hole I went down. I was like, he's got about 15, 20 comics to his credit. I feel like the dialogue might have been Chaykin, especially because some non-PC stuff comes back in, but in a Chaykin way.
We should mention this is a Vertigo book.
Yes, absolutely.
So, don't worry about the comics code. Drop F-bombs. Yes. Nobody's going to stop you.
Yes.
And since it's Howard Chaykin, of course, there's a lot of lingerie.
Yes.
I was thinking about American Flag.
Yes, but it's drawn by Philip Bond. It's not drawn by him, but definitely there's a lot of lingerie, probably lines in the script. Covers are by Art Adams, who had done, Monkey Man and O'Brien, which was basically a kind of Angel and the Ape of his own in the 90s. So he's really perfect for the covers. This is my favorite of the cover-wise, at least.
Those are good covers.
So here we get, it starts with her trying to choose a dress to wear to her friend's wedding. So immediately, this is like the 2001 version of how are we going to get her undressed or dancing or
standing
something
around
like that.
in her underwear.
Yes.
And Sam's right there, but because she doesn't mind him seeing her in her underwear, or even less at a later point.
Yeah, but she calls him her best friend. Around issue 3, this version of Sam never speaks. He's like comic relief almost in this version. Sometimes he carries her up a building, which is something I don't think we had in the 91 version.
No, he climbed around I don't know about.
He had some
91.
King Kong antics in 91. There was more in the 60s version where he's always jumping out the window.
Yeah, in the original, he climbs around a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's jumping out the window to deliver his pages to Stan Bragg or whatever, and running across town and that kind of stuff. There was less of that in 91. It's a little bit here.
But yeah, I hadn't even realized that. We don't even get thought balloons from Sam in the Chaykin version.
Yeah, nothing. He doesn't communicate with her. She speaks to him. He understands her, but he never speaks. And he doesn't even grunt with translations. It's a very...
Never is a word or thought balloon pointing to him.
No, it's like you can see it's to me, it was one of the most defining differences between the three series is how what's Sam's communication level in each series? And it's been different every time. It's the thing that's been reinvented the most. For some reason, everybody has to have a take on how Sam communicates.
Yeah. So this is a Vertigo book, so there's kind of a lot of sex talk.
Yes.
But the story...
They're trying to find this girl that's gone missing, and she was in porn and a stripper and was a lingerie model at the time she was murdered.
And slept with everybody.
Yes.
But the story is, it's basically just a comedy murder mystery.
Yes.
And I thought that was fine. It was interesting, and it gets you into the 2000s.
And it closes. It has the closes like a parlor room mystery where she calls everybody into the room.
Oh yeah, it's totally Ellery. Ellery Queen's even mentioned. So
yes, exactly. Yes, yes. There are funny names in this one. They've come back more so. Like, there's a detective named Detective Comics, Komicz.
Yeah, like he's Polish.
It took me a minute. I was like, Detective Comici every time he turned up. And then I was like,
yeah,
Detective Comics.
Yeah, it took me a second, too. Like, why is his last name Comics?
And his pining for Angel, I thought, was better than in the 91 version where... Bunny was pining for Sam. In this one, this guy's a real loser, kind of weirdo cop who is like playing with dolls of himself and Angel and like fantasizing about the romance and that kind of stuff. And he's a real sad sack. Like, he doesn't have a chance with her. Philip Bond's art is actually the most cartoony, I would say, of the three.
Yeah.
It's very... almost like chibi style, almost manga chibi style, like, which is interesting. I wonder what, how the pairing happened, because were Chaykin and Tischman hoping for like a sexier version of Angel that's now almost cartoonified to the point where it's less sexy?
But much different from the covers. Covers are Angel's Va-Va-Voom, but
yes,
Art Adams.
Art Adams, yeah. Strange choice, but I did feel like it kind of went on. Maybe 3 issues would have been better than 4. We get the killer is found at the end of every issue, almost, and then there's a flip where in the next issue,
like, oops, no,
Angel's
not that guy.
Angel's like, actually, I don't think he did it. I think it was somebody else. So they keep investigating. They go from person to person to person. By the end of it, there's probably like 10 suspects in that room, and I was having trouble remembering. Wait, who's that one again?
Yeah, it was a little much to try to remember.
Yeah,
for our aging brains.
Yeah.
So that means this is a comic for young people because you got to remember a lot.
Yeah, I guess so. But then what's their connection to the title Angel and the Ape? Why, I do like that this one goes back to the explanation the no explanation. There's no explanation of how this ape is working in a detective agency. How did they meet? What's the relationship? Why is he drawing comic books on the side? There's nothing. And I like that aspect of it. But I don't know. I felt like it was too Vertigo. In fact, there's a funny moment where Angel calls somebody a wanker, and they put a hat on that. Like, somebody makes a joke about, oh, this must be Vertigo or something like that. There's almost a fourth wall break.
Yeah, there is some fourth wall breaking in there. Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you could go three such different directions with the same property.
Yes, that is true. I think partly because they didn't have much of a foundation at the very begining. It's
Well,
just
yeah,
a
I mean,
concept.
the first version just being a concept for gags and with a flimsy story thrown in. So, yeah, you can take that and go some other direction.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, which version do you like, or what's working best or worst in each version? Is there? Here's another question. I read these. I went down all those rabbit holes because I was constantly distracted. I don't know that I would reread any of these, but I wonder if there's a version out there that's a better version of this concept, or could it be executed in a way that would be really funny and last longer than 6 issues?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how to make this a popular title. I mean, aside from the racism, I'm kind of into the original version, and I'm the Phil Foglio thing was fine, but I was kind of like, oh, why is it getting so dramatic? This feels like it's straying from the concept.
Yeah.
The third one, the Chaykin, doesn't really get dramatic like that. I mean, its defining characteristic is that it's a Vertigo book and it's more sexual.
Yeah.
Which I guess is okay for a modern audience. You couldn't do that book in the 60s unless it was an underground comic.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, I'm kind of struggling. I mean, each one has its good and bad points, so I'm not sure which I would prefer.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see the whole book drawn by Art Adams. That's what I want to see.
Yes. Agreed. Or Kyle Baker could do, because he did that great version of Plastic Man in the 90s. Of the three, I liked, I like Philip Bond's other work, but I found he was my least favorite for this property of the three versions. I liked Phil Foglio's art. I didn't like all the super villain stuff in it. I didn't necessarily also like that these were 4-issue stories. Like, they were full story arcs. For this property, I kind of liked a mystery per issue that was just a wacky thing where we're kidnapping go-go girls, dancers, to rob banks, done in 20 pages, move on to the next one. I didn't like when they went down to gag pages. I liked a full issue story.
Yeah, in the 1969 issues, it became like 3 or 4 stories per issue, including like a 1-pager or like panel cartoons.
Yeah. So I think the execution of concept was best, or the approach to the concept was best in the 60s. Best execution maybe is the Vertigo version, but I didn't like the having one story over 4 issues. But it maybe is the funniest version. I mean, I didn't laugh a lot in any of them, but
yeah, I think I laughed a few times in all of them. But
right, yeah, same here. I think.
Yeah, I think comedy-wise, they're all at about the same level.
Yeah. Yes, maybe so. So if I had to if somebody said which version should I read, I would be really struggling.
Yeah, well, so this one is really nice. Oh, but then there's that. And you could look at this one, but then I don't like this about that one.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder if they're going to try to do it again.
I doubt it.
It's been 25 years.
Yeah.
I did look on the Wikipedia page, and there's been 1 or 2 random appearances and very New 52 updated, probably Meet Angel, No Ape type stuff.
Or Meet Ape and No Angel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting to me too that Phil Foglio incorporated the Inferior Five. That's another book that is like, I've heard about that all my life. But then when I looked it up, it was only 12 issues. Plus, and the last two were reprints. And, that first or second showcase appearance. So, there's a weird nostalgia for these things that were never hits to begin with.
Yeah.
I read one of those Inferior 5 issues this week, and it was like, that's okay. Some funny bits, and also written by Bridwell, which is maybe why Phil Foglio made the connection. But just strange. Like it wasn't working the first time. They canceled it. It's I talk about nostalgia on Comic Book Movie Oblivion a lot, but I think what it is your mind creates an image. You have a feeling about a property that you consumed when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old. And you reproduce that, but that you're trying to, what the creators make, I think especially came up with the Dick Tracy movie. They're trying to, this property looms large in your mind, and it has a certain life in your mind, and you recreate that on screen as it is in your mind. But what it is in your mind is not what it actually was. It was this chintzy thing printed on newsprint that maybe wasn't that funny or maybe wasn't that good. It's not true in Dick Tracy's case. Dick Tracy was great. But I feel like if that's the reason Chaykin or Foglio came into this property, was like, oh yeah, I remember The Angel and the Ape, and I remember it was really funny and I loved it. But I bet if they reread them, I really wonder how much they would be able to defend them.
Or maybe they just liked Angel being sexy. I don't know. Certainly Chaykin.
Well, Phil Foglio too was famous for having that pornographic fantasy comic. So that might have been part of the appeal for him too. They're both famous for doing sexy comics, erotic comics.
Yeah.
And Chaykin, Black Kiss especially, they've both done porn comics. So yeah, maybe they did think. If I had read that issue where she does that wiggly go-go dance when I was a kid, that it would be burned in my memory. I don't know if I'll remember these comics next week, but if I had read it when I was young, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember Angel and the Ape.
Okay. Well, we got 50 minutes out of this. This was great.
Okay.
Angel and the Ape was published by DC. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. On Facebook, we have both a page and a group. Those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our YouTube channel, where our episodes are posted every week as videos of a single image. You can comment on our episodes on YouTube or on our site, or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Former Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter died recently. A couple years back, Coom interviewed him here on Deconstructing Comics, and next week we re-present that interview, in which he talks about his take on modern-day Marvel, the early days of Frank Miller and Ann Nocenti's careers, why Little Miss Muffet is a tool for teaching good writing, and more. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.